Good morning, everybody. Welcome to SoapBox Slam, where I get up on my soapbox and I slam a bunch of stuff that I see going on in the world, in the United States, in your local neighborhoods, in my state, everywhere. I just slam it. I state my opinions. Some of my opinions are backed up with research and fact. I don't necessarily have all the answers, but everything I'm talking about, I will try to present some sort of solution to the problem or suggestions on how to make the issue a better issue, and that's what this show is about, right? Today I want to talk about something that really gets me burned up, right? It is a subject that I think not a lot of people are really paying close detail attention to, and I think having gone through the entire system of it, I have identified where all of the leaks and problems within this system, where they exist. And what we're going to talk about today is student loans, right? Before I get into the topic of student loans, I will say in most of my slams, when I get on my soapbox and I talk about the government and I talk about banks and financing in the United States of America, my opinion, my perspective, flat out, I'm not happy. I don't like them. I think they're a scam, and I think they need to get out of American society, American politics, and American finances. I really will flat out say I do not like the banks. I hold the banks responsible for 75% of the problems in the United States of America, and the government. I also hold 75% responsible for the problems in America, and so therefore, the tainted perspective and lens that I have is a viewpoint that is already working from the point that they're wrong, right? And I'm going to get on my soapbox and slam as many things as I can find wrong with them, because I believe they're utterly corrupt and completely need to be tore down and reestablished, and so there's my perspective, right? So having said that, the student loans system in the United States of America is specifically designed to sock any person who takes on student loan debt with debt for the rest of their life. There is no other borrowing loan method in the United States of America that is as corrupt and organized the way student loans are organized. Okay? Now, before I get into the organization of student loans and why it is unlike any other lending policy in the United States, I first want to say and talk about this whole thing that Joe Biden tried to do, where he just tried to wipe everyone's debt clean, right? I still have some student loan debt, and I'll tell you my student loan story in a minute. I still have some student loan debt, but and as an American person who worked through the pandemic and did not receive any stipend because, quote unquote, I make too much money, but the rest of everybody else got a shitload of money, and I didn't get any tax break, and I didn't get anything. And I worked through the pandemic full time, 60, 70 hours a week, 6 days a week. Okay? I worked through the pandemic. I paid for all of you guys who received money to get your money. I paid for it. Okay? So this idea, like Joe Biden, this whole forgiving the student loan debt is such a horrible thing that he came up with. Again, you know what? I don't really feel that way. A lot of people do. I don't feel that way, only because I paid in and so many other people have gotten paid out. I have yet to receive anything for it. Y'all, and I do mean y'all, everybody who was laid off, everybody who got free money from the government, the corporations, individuals, everybody, people who got money for having kids, all that other stuff, right? Y'all got it on my back. I mean, y'all got it on my back. Period, point blank, bottom line. Ain't no ifs, ands, buts about it. You got it on my back because I worked and I paid taxes all through the pandemic. Before the pandemic, through the pandemic, and after pandemic. And I still haven't gotten shit for it. So y'all got that shit on my back. Just be clear. So the airlines and the corporations and all the individuals who got money from the federal government, you know, y'all got yours. So I don't really have a problem with the idea of my student loan being forgiven if that's what Joe Biden was able to accomplish. He wasn't. But the truth of the matter is, whether I got the money or not, I am 100%, 200% irate and furious because forgiving the debt does not solve the student loan problem. And in a minute, I'm about to go through what the student loan problems are. And that's the biggest scam that everybody who's touting the flag that Joe Biden's forgiving the debt and the Department of Education and everybody else is going to forgive all this money and they're doing everything they can to help the American people so that the student loan issue isn't going to sock you with debt forever. That is a lie. Because just forgiving money and just giving money out and writing off money is not solving the infrastructure problems, the problems ingrained in the entire conception of student loan, the policies and procedures within student loans that is so corrupt that just forgiving debt isn't going to fix that. And I would much rather Joe Biden not forgive my debt, but restructure student loan and lending policies to the point that nobody else will ever have to go through what I went through, the nightmare, the horror, the terror of student loan debt and student loan collection. Okay? That is my position about it. Hell yeah, I'll take the money and have my debt forgiven. It didn't work, but the truth of the matter is that wasn't even a band-aid on the problem, and that was an attempt to be a band-aid on the problem. The problem is in the entire inception and structure of lending policies for student loan. Like I said earlier, student loan lending is unlike any other lending in the United States of America. Okay? Well, what do you mean, Sean, right? Like, how can you say that? There are several ways that student loan is unlike any other lending in America. I kind of like to equate it to this whole debacle that happened in 2008 with the subprime derivative and also predatory lending, right? This whole thing that happened in 2008 is very kin. I'm not going to say it's the exact thing. I'm going to say it's very kin to student loan debt. In fact, and student loan lending. In fact, I'd like to think that, and this is not a fact, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'd like to think that they got the whole idea of subprime derivatives in the 2008 lending debacles because of the student loan model, right? Now, that's not a fact. I don't know if that's true or not, but it is something I'd like to think. Because where we have problems in student loans and why the lending practices are unlike any other lending practices in the United States boils down to a lot of things, right? For example, number one, you take a credit card or a mortgage. You borrow money with a credit card and you borrow money for a mortgage. You have to make a payment every month, right? There are some, well, not with credit cards, with loans, there are some forbearances and some ways to delay payment or whatever else. But for the most part, 80 to 95% of the time, you have to make your payments month to month. If you make a larger payment, you still have to make another payment the next month. Okay? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's clear, cut, and dry. Unfortunately, with credit card debt, you have an insane interest rate. I mean, the fact that you're going to pay 25% or 18% on borrowed money from credit card or credit, and you're going to pay an interest of 18 to 25%, I think it's just, I mean, you're paying basically a quarter of every dollar an additional quarter of every dollar in interest. Almost, I mean, you're paying a quarter on every dollar. So every dollar you're borrowing, it's actually $1.25. You know, or I mean, if you borrow $1 and it's 16, it's $1.16, right? So that's an extremely high amount of money to be paying on top of what you're borrowing. But that's how the credit card system is set up. And for the most part, credit cards is pretty cut and dry. You borrow the money, you make your payments monthly, interest is accrued monthly at an interest rate that is extremely high to borrow the money, and that's that. Month to month you pay. You pay more, you still got to pay the next month. You got to pay a minimum. If you don't make your payments, there are penalties that are accrued, fees and things like that are accrued, and it compounds interestly, and it's pretty straightforward, right? I mean, the truth of the matter is, a lending practice, I mean, the best advice I can give is don't borrow, don't use your credit cards. I mean, just, you got to be strong about not using credit cards and work out of cash. Credit cards, they require it for renting and hotels and things like that. Maybe you use it for that, but you got to pay them off right away. Same with borrowing money to buy a house, right? It's pretty straightforward. I mean, you make your monthly payments to pay your mortgage, you get to keep your house. You can pay more if you want. All that's going to do is knock down the principal, but in the interim, there is no getting around month-to-month payments. The unique thing about what separates student loan from credit card and mortgage payments is each month you're paying the interest primarily, and then whatever extra money you give, it works down on the principal, right? It doesn't work like that in student loans. So that's one caveat that makes student loans different from the other lending practices, credit cards and banks. So what do you mean, Sean? How is that different? With student loans, once you borrow the money and then you got to start paying, they allocate a certain time period as to how long it's going to take for you to pay that back. And that includes the interest over that period of time. For the most part, you're locked into that. So if you don't really get to pay it off early, because even if you pay it off early, they still going to make you pay the interest that's allocated over that period of time, right? And you're going to say, what do you mean, Sean? That's crazy. I'll explain to you how that happens in a minute, but just keep that in mind. That's one way that it's very different as a lending practice from the other lending practices. There's a allocated amount of interest that they have already calculated that you are going to pay for over a period of time for that loan. So when you try to make payments and pay it off early, they will lock it in a way that the calculations are based on an interest over a period of time, and they want that entire interest over the period of time. So paying it off early doesn't work, and I'll explain that in a minute. So back to this, how are they different? So other lending practices, or the corrupt lending practices of student loans. Let me just break it down like this, and then I will tell you my story. Student loans have a high interest rate. I say high, I think it's too high. It's about 7 or 8%. Student loans do not, when you make a payment, when I was talking about this large payment, like if you try to make a large payment, what student loan does is so let's say you owe $40,000. And let's say you have a little windfall of money, or you get a little money you have a windfall of money, right? You owe $40,000. You pay $30,000. That leaves a balance of $10,000 left, right? What student loan does is they allocate that $30,000 you paid, and they stretch it out as a monthly payment. They divide $30,000 by 12 months, and that's how many payments. So they spread the payment out automatically over a period of time. So if you do something like that, well, then it looks like you've made a payment in advance for 10 years or 20 years or 15 years. What they do not do is they do not say, you made your $30,000 payment, there's a $10,000 balance, the next month you need to make a payment to work down the $10,000 balance. They don't do that. They do not do that. To this day, they still do not do that. They force a payment allocation on large payments to be stretched out over a period of time so that you're forced to continue paying after this money has run out over the period of time that they've stretched it out. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I'll say it again. You owe $40,000, you get a windfall, you pay $30,000. The very next month, they don't expect another payment of whatever amount. Let's say you're paying $200 a month. They don't, the very next month, they don't say, you owe me $200, it's the next month. Every other lending practice that exists out there, if you make a large payment, if you owe $5,000 in June to a credit card company, and in June you pay $4,500, in July, they still want another payment. They don't stretch that $4,000 payment for a credit card out over a period of time, allocated, also accruing interest. They don't stretch it out. Same with the mortgage companies. They don't stretch it out. Student loan companies do. They have the right, as I've argued with them over this, they are working within the parameters of their policy, as they so snippetly want to tell me. We are practicing what the law legally tells us to do, we can do. What the law legally tells them they can do. That's what they're doing. That's what they did. That happened to me. And even now to this day, they try to catch people when they say, oh, you've made a large payment. Even now, if you owe a certain amount of money, you pay $200 a month or $100 a month, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna try and get this done quicker, and you give them $200. If you don't specifically tell them that extra money has to go towards the principal, they automatically make it so that the next month you don't have to make a payment. They do this automatically. It's set up this way. This is criminal. This is unlike any other lending practice. So this is one major problem with student loan practices. This is one of the things that when Joe Biden wants to give everybody blanket money, I say, fuck you, Joe Biden. Yeah, I'll take the money, but you're not fixing the problem. Fix that. Fix that. Because that is a part of the predatory problem in student loan lending. That's one of the problems with student loan lending. Another problem with student loan lending is the fact that the interest is locked at 7%, and this 7% is the entire life of the loan or whatever else, but this is an interest amount that they are calculating over a period of time. If you borrow X amount of money, they say it takes you 30 years. It may take you, it could take you less than 30 years, but they're gonna make sure that it takes you 30 years to pay that. So they're making money off the interest, allocating the funds, even if you try to pay it off early, allocating the funds to stretch out that payment so that you're accruing interest over that period of time. So what they do is, let's say you don't know these policies or you didn't read the fine print, right? What they do is, so you think you've made this $40,000, $30,000 payment on a $40,000 borrow. You think you make this huge payment. Well, what they do, and this just happened even during the pandemic, what they do is they lock your automatic account out. So now you've made this huge payment. They don't give you access to your internet account. They don't give you access. It's blocked out. It's all locked out. Like, they even did this during the pandemic. During the pandemic, when they said nobody has to make a payment, Joe Biden suspended it, whatever, they locked all the systems. So during that time, I was like, well, I still have student loan debts. I'm still working. Why don't I continue paying, right? I get rid of my debt. I go in online, try to make payments. Guess what? I can't access my account. I can't make payments. Nope. Cannot make payments during the pandemic at all. They locked everybody out so that you can't make a payment. So for those 2 years, I could have been knocking down my debt. Nope. They made sure. Now, they may not have made me pay interest over those 2 years, but they locked everything out and made sure that when they could start collecting again, that I would be at the exact same amount before the pandemic that after the pandemic. They did this. Again, the banks, the credit card companies didn't make me stop paying. They didn't lock me out of paying my credit, my borrowed credit cards. They didn't lock me out of my mortgage and say you don't have to pay mortgage anymore for these 2 years. And when we start back up, you can start paying mortgage again. They didn't do that. Nope. No other lending practice did that. Student loan practices did, right? So the interest rate is a problem to me. The system of allocating the payments, especially larger payments than just the minimum payment, allocating that over a period of time so that you can't knock down your debt quicker, right? So that's a problem with student loans. Another issue with student loans, I'm a lot older, so I'm a lot older. One of the biggest issues is there's a shell game that is occurring when the service providers, right? Because there are a million service providers for student loan, tons of them, corrupt bankers, right? Service providers, service loan providers, Nelnet, Sallie Mae, Direct Loan. There are tons of these companies that are corrupt to the core because they're corrupt in the student loan problem, right? These are your service loan providers, right? The servicers, Sallie Mae, Nelnet, whatever else, right? So student direct services, whatever. So when I graduated from college in 1998, okay, I had to start making my payments. One service loan provider, call her Sallie Mae, was my provider, right? So I'm making my payments to Sallie Mae, $200 a month, right? Making my payments to Sallie Mae. Well, Sallie Mae decides that she doesn't want to collect my payments anymore, so she's gonna sell the service providing my payments and everything else. She's gonna sell that to another company, right? Now, mind you, back then in '98, there was still a paper trail. Everything wasn't digital. Everything wasn't on computers. All payments were still done through mail and everything else. There wasn't no direct payments and all that other stuff. You had to mail a check, or make a payment by phone with your check numbers and everything else, right? There wasn't this automated system yet, okay? Sallie Mae decides that she doesn't want to service my loan anymore, so she sells my loan to another service provider. Then that service provider picks up. Well, guess what happens in that time? I don't know. I don't get any warning. I don't get a choice in her selling my loan to somebody else. She gets to choose who and when she wants to get rid of it and who I'm going to pay next. Well, I imagine that it takes 2 months for all of that transition to occur. Sallie Mae gives it to a direct loan, right? Well, I'm still making payments to Sallie Mae, but guess what? Sallie Mae doesn't have it anymore. So I just made a $400 payment to Sallie Mae, who's not servicing my loan. Guess who pocketed that $400? Because the date that Sallie Mae gives it to Direct Loan has it at that amount. But I don't get information or privy of all that information for almost 2 months later. So I still made payments to Sallie Mae, and then it becomes Direct Loan, and now I got to make payments to Direct Loan. So in this process of the shell game, where they keep changing your service provider who services the loan, money gets lost in translation. Not only does money get lost, imagine how many human errors, accounting errors, tracking errors of what has occurred in the account, whether it's forbearance or consolidations or whatever else. Imagine how many errors occur when they constantly are moving the service providers, switching them. Like I said, it's a shell game. Well, then I make my payments to Direct Loan. Well, guess what? Direct Loan doesn't want to do the loan anymore, and they sell it to Nelnet. Guess what? The same thing happens. They know they're giving it to Nelnet 2 months later. I find out. Well, guess what? I'm still making my payments to Direct Loans, And until I find out, I can't switch, and it's my responsibility to switch all of my banking information to the new service provider, right? So all this money that gets lost in translation, and the money that the day that they sell the loan, direct loan sells it to Nelnet, it's one amount, but by the time I get the information 2 months later, I've already made 2 payments. It shouldn't be the amount that they initially made the agreement on when they decided to sell it to a different service provider. Money gets lost in translation. This is how people are getting rooked. This is corrupt. This is what's really going on. I'm not lying. I'm making this shit up. I've lived this shit. I've lived this since I graduated from college, and I'm dealing with this, right? Still to this day. So Joe Biden is a fucking prick, and the student loan system is a fucking prick and needs to burn down, because they need to stop with this allocating funds over a period of time. They need to stop with the higher interest rate. They need to stop with the service provider switching, the shell game of the service provider. That needs to stop. So instead of giving me money to forgive my debt, fucking fix those 3 things. But there's more. Wait, there's more. There's more corruption within the system, okay? Because I lived all this and I wrote all this down, and I've had to fight to try and get my shit correct every step of the way. This is why I'm able to point out every freaking leak and problem in the system, because they do not expect you to save all your paperwork. Luckily, thankfully, I was taught, and I have files. I mean, you should see the files that I have, the receipts, right? I got files thick from 1998, the time I first had to start making payments. Files of all of the shit that I've had to do and deal with them. And they don't, when they're doing the shell game and switching and everything else, they don't expect you to have your receipts. They don't expect you to have a file and keep a file on everything. They don't expect, and most people don't. But I'm telling you, your best weapon is to have that, so you have your proof. And they'll even tell you, make sure you keep all your paperwork. The reason why they're telling you that, because they know they're doing corrupt shit. That's why they're telling you that. I mean, that's 100% why they're telling you that, because they know damn well that they're doing some shady shit. So, back on task, right? More problems. I've already identified 3 or 4 problems with the student loan system that if Joe Biden really wanted to fix the student loan system for American society and people going forward and promote American prosperity, he would attack these 4 things, not just shell out money, right? So what else are problems with the student loan system? Another problem with the student loan lending practices are the idea of forbearance, consolidation, and those sorts. So when you consolidate a loan, guess what? It's consolidated at a higher interest rate. Also, when you consolidate a loan, they incorporate, let's say you have in your course of school 5 different Pell Grants, all a different amount of money, all have different interest rates. What they do when they consolidate it is they consolidate it with an allocated amount of interest on top of it, and then consolidate it all in one lump. So now all of your individual Pell Grants and the true dollar amount of the principals get lost in consolidation, because they've added all of the interest, or they allocated interest over time into that consolidation, right? So now it's consolidated into one bigger loan, not consolidating just principals. They're consolidating principals with allocated interest on top of the principals, and what it would have been if you had paid it out over a certain period of time, how long it would have taken to get it paid off. All of that gets consolidated into one big lump. So now you cannot delineate what was principal and what was interest. It's all now one big loan. And now you're responsible for that one big loan. If it isn't consolidated, you can chip away individually at each individual Pell Grant or need-based loan or whatever else. You can chip away at each one of those individually. The moment you consolidate them, it all gets lost. There's no more chipping away at independent principals. It's all one loan now. And so this idea of consolidation is bad idea. But they use it as a tool to help people who don't know, especially young people who haven't lived long enough to learn lending practices, right? I mean, the truth of the matter is, it's all corrupt. There shouldn't be all of these different lending practices. There should be one way of lending money and paying it back. One policy, one way, that's it. That's all that's available. That's what it is, right? There should not be subprime, derivative, caveat ways of lending money. There shouldn't be. The two biggest systems, the mortgage system and the credit card systems, are the two biggest systems of lending money and paying it back. But these corrupt practices like student loans also creep into other areas. I've seen it now as I've been investigating solar loans. Solar loan practices are starting to do the same thing as student loan practices. Solar loans, solar panel loans are doing the same thing. Also, like home loans that aren't necessarily from a bank or a credit card, these home improvement loan places, they're doing practices like this as well. And once you've been through it, you can recognize how these other loan companies, like payday loan and these like payday loan places. Now, Barack Obama did put some big regulations on those kind of companies, but their predatory loan practices also are similar to that which the student loan lenders practice, right? So this consolidation, that's another problem. If Joe Biden wanted to fix the student loan problem, instead of just shelling out money, he could fix the consolidation problem. He can fix the allocation of funds over a period of time when you make large payment problem. He could fix the interest problem. He can fix the shell game of many different service providers handling your loan over the course of your time paying it. I mean, that's 4 issues right there. Major issues where money gets lost, where it chips away at anyone's prosperity and makes it very difficult to get ahead and pay off your debt. I mean, that's 4 right there. That's 4, right? Consolidation, the consolidation forbearance issues. Because also, when you're on forbearance, you're still accruing interest on the entire amount of the loan. And the entire amount of the loan is including the interest that you've already incurred on it, right? I mean, that is still going on. So that's 4 right there. Forbearance consolidation, the allocation of funds when you make large payments, the higher interest rates, and the shell game. Joe Biden, if you can hear me, or your representatives, or anybody else, anybody who's dealing with the student loan, the Department of Education, F you guys. Suck my you-know-what. Because you guys are corrupt as all hell. And you just shelling out money is not even a band-aid on the problem, because you're not willing to stop these corrupt 4 practices that I just explained to you. You're not willing to fix that. So you can give out all the money, but future generations are still going to run into the same hurdles. Fix the problem if you really care and want Americans to be prosperous. Fix that. I identified 4 real problems. Now, my story. I came into a windfall of some money. I had a debt of about $40,000. Not even $40,000. Actually, it was my total debt was like, well, maybe it was $40,000. I came into a windfall of some money. I paid $38,000 in one lump payment, not $3,800. $38,000 on a debt that they allocated that I owe was up to $40,000. One lump sum payment. I thought my debt was paid off. I had a statement. It was at Sallie Mae. It went to the shell game, right? I'm learning the shell game. I thought it was at Sallie Mae. It was at Direct Loans. I made the payment to Sallie Mae, and I thought the balance before it went to Direct Loan was $38,000. Let's call it $38,741. I want to be 100% exact, right? I make the payment to Sallie Mae. Oh, they made sure that the payment was on record, but because they had already shell gamed and gave it to somebody else, the payment at this date I made the payment wasn't the amount that it was due the amount that it was owed when it went to direct loan. So there was a balance of $2,000 left over. I never knew this. I thought when I made a $38,741 payment, I was done with student loans. So I made a lump sum payment. Life goes on. I'm feeling good. I have no student loan debt. I'm trucking along. My life is going good. I'm doing everything else. 18 years later, guess what? 18 years later, I get these phone calls from people who do not speak English clearly, right? Hello, Sean. We are calling from student loans. Well, I'm like, calling from student loans? I don't have any student loans. I made that payment 20 years ago. Quit calling me. You're a scam. Leave me alone, right? That's my thought. You know, they tell you about scams all the time on the news. I'm sitting there like, what? Student loans? I paid that 20 years ago. This is corrupt. This is a scam. Never mind. So I ignored those calls. Well, apparently those calls were real, because apparently I had a balance when I made that $38,000 payment back in, I think I made the payment back in 2001 or 2002. Well, there was a balance left over. They allocated that $38,000 payment over the course of 20 years. So they just stretched the payment out each month for 20 years. And when there was no more money, they wanted to make their money. Well, guess what? That $2,000 balance accrued interest over those 20 years. Guess what? That $2,000 balance ballooned to call it $9,000. If they had told me that there was a $2,000 balance in 2002, then I would have made payments or just pulled another $2,000 out of my bank account and paid it off then. And if I didn't have the $2,000, I would have made payments over the course of the last 20 years to pay off $2,000. Over the course of the last 20 years, I could have made a payment of $5 and paid it off over this period of time. But no, because I didn't know all this was going on. Like I said, shell game. I paid it to Sally Mae. They sold it to direct loans. There was a balance. Now direct loan allocated that payment over this period of time. And with the balance, and that balance accrued interest over that period of time, 20 years, and now that $2,000 became $9,000, and they're calling me, again, non-native American speakers who I thought was a scam, like, you don't even speak English and you're calling me, you think you speak English, but you do not speak English, and you're calling me saying I owe you money. I think any person in their right mind would be like, this is a scam. The only time that I found out this was legit was when my credit score dropped. And I'm like, why the fuck is my credit score going down? And then I had to get a full copy of my credit score, and okay, that makes it, what the fuck? There's a student loan? $8,000? No. I mean, I'm irate, because now I'm like, how the fuck? So now I'm going back through all of my papers, and I'm still to this day dealing with that. I'm making my student loan payments on this $8,000, but I am still fighting. And thank God, I have proof and the receipts of all of this. When it went from Sally Mae to direct loan to Nelnet, and all these different service providers who had it, when it was consolidated and what happened in consolidation, all of this, I have the paperwork. I mean, the file that I have is so thick because I kept the receipts. And I am still making my payments right now. But this is my experience with them. This is how I know those 4 issues with student loans need to be fixed. This is how I know. I'm not just talking shit, right? I'm not just off the cuff here. This is first-hand experience in dealing with it, and me being able to track and pinpoint every point of the way what the problems are. I am not lying to you people. I'm not shitting you. I'm not trying to ruse you. This is not a conspiracy. These are facts. I have the receipt. This is the problem with student loans. So when people want to complain about, oh, why are we giving them that free money, I agree. I don't want to give free money to everybody, even though everybody has gotten free money. Everybody has gotten free money, except me. I worked through the pandemic. I paid for all your handouts. People, individuals, and the corporations. right? I pay for that shit. I worked through all of it. I get up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, put my boots on, get ready to work 10 to 12 hours a day, go home 6 days a week. I do this. I do it. So do not freaking tell me, oh, well, you don't deserve the handout. No, I don't want anybody to get a handout. But the shit needs to be fixed. And Joe Biden is not your friend. The Democrats are not your friend, nor are the Republicans. These people are not your friend. They are not interested in every American having prosperity. And the reason why I say that is simply when you allow a banking system like the Department of Education to have these kind of practices where they are rooking the payers, the lenders are rooking the payers, and these people know it. They know it. They know how far down the rabbit hole it all goes. Elizabeth Warren has been trying to chip away at all this, but she's a lone, she's the lone wolf in a pack of wolves, and she's still don't forget, she's still a representative. She's still making money. She's still getting paid out. So, I mean, I don't know that for sure, but she's still a politician, right? I mean, she's still a politician. She is willing to go to distance and attack these bankers, and I hope she's legit on all of that. But I'm telling you now, our representatives, Joe Biden, guess where the majority of these lending companies and credit card companies, guess where they all incorporate? In Joe Biden's home state, where he was a senator for years. Ironic. Who do you think has benefited the most from the banking industry? I mean, you can go into the Hunter Biden bullshit, all that. I mean, all that nepotism shit is everywhere. Whether it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump and his crony kids, the nepotism, Hunter Biden, all that's everywhere, okay? So, I mean, trying to split hairs on that is ridiculous. What I'm not splitting hairs on is the fact that when you find out and you see that all the credit card companies and all the lending companies are incorporated in the home state that Joe Biden was the senator of, then it makes clear sense that the man from Scranton, whose family had to scrap their way and has gotten his payouts or his payoffs lobbied. He was lobbied, because this is the legal term for it. You can be lobbied. If you're lobbied, you can legally be paid off, because the word is called lobbying, even though in layman's term, you're paid off, right? But no, you found a delicate new word to make it legal. Lobbied. He was lobbied, so lobbyists paid him off so that he would make or allow lending practices and policies to be created in a legal way, because legislation makes the laws. So he would be able to write a proposal, a bill that would get through Congress. He was lobbied to do this, right? He's been in Congress for 30, 40, 50 years, and you don't think he already knows that this is the problem? He absolutely knows. He absolutely knows. That's why Biden and Obama were able to do the financial restructuring and the I forget the name of it. Anyways, when they were able to fix the financial crisis of 2008, the reason why they knew what regulations would work the most is because they were the ones that released those regulations and knew what they were that were causing the problems. They know. And Joe Biden is just throwing money on the problem, but not fixing the problem. The problem is to fix those 4 areas that I told you about. With the interest rate, what they can do, I pointed out all the problems, my solution to the problem. I'll provide you with my solution to the problem, and then we'll wrap this up, right? Number 1, stop the consolidations, period, point blank. Forbearance is one thing. It's you're having a hardship, so we'll pause it, and you can pay it later, right? But consolidation, no. Get rid of the consolidation crap. No. You need to be able to track how many loans you've had, what the original principal was, and what interest they're charging on each individual loan. So that's a Pell Grant, a unsecured and a secured Pell Grant. It's all of those different ones each year that you took out, or each semester that you took out. When you consolidate it, you lose all those details and it becomes one. Consolidation is bad. So eliminate consolidation. Number two, fixing the problem. Number two, I personally think that the interest rate should be only 2%. I also think in that, once you get to a point where the loan has doubled in size, so if I borrowed $40,000, but it's taking me a long time to pay back the $40,000, the moment that $40,000 becomes $60,000, so 25% higher than what the original borrowed amount was, once it gets to a certain point, a certain threshold, it can no longer accrue any more interest. It's locked in at that amount. And the reason why I say that is, if the idea is to better educate the people, and that's why we're giving this money so they can go to school, so that we have a workforce in America. I mean, that's the concept of better education in America, right? So that we have an educated American society that is innovative and creative and all of that other stuff. If that is the reason for student loans, loaning money to students so that they can get better education, then to me, to try to capitalize in a predatory way off of education is corrupt. It's counterintuitive. So by capping the amount to saying you borrowed 40, if you don't get the 40 paid off in this period of time, it will be 60, but it will never be any higher than that, and you'll have forever to pay off that one amount, right? You can get it off. If you can get 40 paid off sooner than that, then you don't have to worry about it, right? So capping the interest and capping how much your borrowed debt can accrue interest, how high it can go, I think is a great solution to that problem. So the interest problem, the forbearance and consolidation problem. Number two, the service providers. I don't know why we have to have a million different service providers. If it's the Department of Education and they're giving the loans, or they're backing the loan, they're backing the finance, like an FDIC, right? They're backing the loan. I don't see why you need several different service providers. Maybe if you divide the country into 4 regions, 4 different service providers are responsible for the loan for the life of the loan, the person who has that loan, forever. Those are the 4 companies etched in stone that service the loans. They can't sell it to other providers. They can't shell game them. They are stuck with them. They are stuck with it. I mean, I don't understand why you need a third party to service the loan. The loan was given. It's backed by the Department of Education. Why isn't there one other party that is servicing the loan? Just one, not a million. And shell gaming that million where they just keep shifting the loans all around. That's fuzzy. That's corrupt. That system. So the servicers, we need to eliminate all the different servicers, create 4 servicers, and they have to service the loan for the life of the loan until it's paid off. Paperwork doesn't get lost. Paper trails don't get lost. Nothing gets lost. There's no way human error and everything else can happen because it's at that one company forever. I started out with Sallie Mae. I would be with Sallie Mae until it was completely paid off. Period, point blank. No direct loans, no Nelnet, no all these other servicers, right? Eliminate the multi-servicing process, right? That's another way to fix the solution to the problem. And then the fourth final way is this whole allocating the funds. The way that's set up and everything else so that it's paid over a period of time, eliminate that shit. It needs to work like a credit card or a mortgage. No matter how much money, you could pay off your principal early, but the very next month you need to keep paying. There's no allocating extra money over a period of time so you can stretch the loan out and stretch the interest out. That needs to stop. So that's how you fix the problems. This has been a very long one. This is one that I am fighting to my core. If I had real access to real people in politics who cared, I would bring all of my paperwork to them and sit down and show them how I found all these leaks and show them what my solution to the problem is and fight as hard as I can to fix it and get rid of the student loan issue. I'm not asking for free money. I'll take it because I've given everybody else free money, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking to fix the problem. That's my slam today. That's what I'm on my soapbox about. Please hear it out. People who have kids know that these are the cracks. And I hope your kids don't have to deal with it. I really do. People out there who are going through this system, I've identified the 4 cracks that I've identified. See if those cracks have affected you, and help me fight and bring down the student loan corruption. Because throwing money after isn't the solution. They need to fix these cracks that I've found and that I've endured while I've had to pay student loans. So that's what I'm on my soapbox about today. That's what I'm furious about and dealing with. Hear me out. Help me fight this. Please pay attention to what I've said, and you know, that's some advice in my experience, right? So yeah, that's my slam. That's my soapbox. That's what it is. You guys have a great day.